By the end of the 1960s, North Carolina's rural and urban areas were separating economically, with job growth in the towns and cities outpacing the rest of the state. The growing economic divide soon became the target of repeated investments to ensure that rural areas would not be left behind. Starting in the 1970s, under Governors Bob Scott and Jim Holshouser, the focus moved toward balanced growth to avoid a widening economic gulf between urban and rural areas. The Balanced Growth Act, passed in 1979, signaled that the state's official priority was to bring jobs to people where they live and provide public services equitably for all citizens. In the 1980s, Governor Jim Martin introduced the Global Trans Park with a goal of making it into a major employment center in rural eastern North Carolina. After a slow start, Spirit Aerosystems located a major aircraft manufacturing facility there in 2008, reinvigorating hopes for the project. In 1987, the Rural Economic Development Center was launched with a grant from the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation. Its original mission as a rural policy think tank had evolved to include infrastructure development, business support, and leadership training. The Rural Center is widely known as the preeminent organization of its kind in the United States. In the late 1990s, funds started to flow into state coffers from the national class action legal settlements against tobacco companies. North Carolina earmarked half of its share to a foundation to promote development in its poorest counties and those economically dependent on tobacco. By 2012, the Golden Leaf Foundation had poured $500 million into economic, workforce, and community development projects in rural counties. Rural pockets of poverty remain, but studies show that many rural areas would be even more economically distressed without the programs of the last 30 years. While not without ongoing criticism, efforts to maintain vibrant rural economies continue in North Carolina.